It is the Anfield Wrap. I'm Neil Atkinson, and we are sponsored today by Green King Sport, where football is more than just a game. Across the course of the season, Green King will be showing every televised Liverpool fixture, and there's 900 sports pubs across the UK, so it doesn't matter where you're based, whether it's Liverpool, London, Loughborough, or other places that begin with L. You can catch every single minute of every single game. We'll have some events and offers and all sorts of bits and pieces coming over the course of the year with Green King. So if you can't get somewhere for the Villa game, I presume that's televised, I'm not actually sure, then if you can't be at Anfield, then you'll be able to find it in a Green King pub if it is indeed on Sky Sports. I apologise to everyone for not having that bit of information to hand as to whether or not we are this weekend, but regardless, all the way through, we're definitely televised against Wolves the other side of the international break, so you can have an eye on that one. I know that one, it's a 12:30. Okay then, Liverpool went to Newcastle in a televised fixture, and on Sunday night shocked the nation with the gloriousness that is Darwin Núñez's brace after he came on. We're still absolutely buzzing. I've got Ian Ryan, I've got Robbie O'Neill, and I've got Kieran Molyneux. And Ian Ryan, first and foremost, wins that feel huge through the whole of your life. It genuinely feels like one of our biggest wins, without messing about, of the sort of last 4 or 5 years, which is mad when you think about everything we've won in the last 4 or 5 years. But every bit of context around it, being down to 10, going there, them feeling like the coming force, every little bit of nonsense, and then even the fact that it's Darwin Núñez, not Mo Salah, not Diogo Jota, not Cody Gakpo, it's Darwin off the bench. Every bit of it feels like a glorious, awfully big adventure.
100%. It's Liverpool finding new ways to win football matches, and I think going into the game, we did a couple of shows last week, and I was talking about you haven't got to have necessarily a fast start where you score, although you will always take that. But I wanted them to kind of work their way into the game, ease themselves in, nothing silly, control the tempo, all that. My God, they couldn't have been any further from that the first 20 minutes or so, because we're almost down to 10 men within 5. We're putting them through on goal, 1-on-1 with the keeper. Then we do go down to 10 men, and we can't keep hold of the ball for love nor money. It's a car crash of 20 minutes. And I think Liverpool then find themselves, and Darwin, rightly so and understandably, will get all applauded because, my God, it's a hell of a cameo. And it's one of the most memorable cameos in a red shirt you can remember for a good while. But none of it happens without Alisson Becker making that save as well. And that save at 1-0, where he tips it onto the bar, it's an outrageous piece of goalkeeping. And Liverpool at the time, we are staring adversity straight in the face. And when you are staring it straight in the face, you need your big players to step up and be counted. And there's not many bigger than Alisson Becker. And despite Gary Neville trying to make it sound like the most mundane thing, like he just managed to put his boots on the right way, it's world-class. It is world-class goalkeeping in every aspect. And that then gives Liverpool something to build on. It gives them something to believe in, and we go from there.
When we go from there and we do begin to believe, I think that happens at half-time, Robbie. There was the graphic came up on the Sky coverage of Liverpool have only completed 18 passes for the first 15 minutes of the second half. But to me, that was almost part of the plan. They had this idea of we sit in, we get through the first 15, they're going to come at us, and we build a bit of a shell. And I think that takes a bit of courage to do that when you're Liverpool at that point, just to make it horrible and to commit to that wholeheartedly. But that goes well for them. There isn't chance after chance at that point. The keeper's made his define save of the match. He will be called into action again, don't get me wrong, but it's much more straightforward because Liverpool defend the space really, really well and frustrate them.
It was the most compact I've seen us since Benitez was here. I think at times, like those like 2 banks of 4, you could just see Newcastle just doing the best to try to play around them and just not having any succor at all. I think at times we've kind of like we've bemoaned how open we've been, and I think yesterday in particular there was every kind of like opportunity for that to turn into an absolute car crash. Like, I mean, I know you mentioned like about the sending off and the goal, but it could have been much worse. Like, I actually thought we finished the first half brilliantly. I don't think it's even the second half, Neil. I think the minute he sent off, it was like, fuck this. It was, we bedded down, and I feel like actually at the end of the first half, it looked like we looked more likely to score, I felt. I feel like actually, as bad as the first half was generally, I actually think we looked the more dangerous. I can't remember them having a shot on target before their goal.
I don't think they did.
I don't think they did. They had a lot of the ball. They weren't doing much with it. And I think it was yesterday, it was kind of like Liverpool kind of saying, this is what we want the blueprint for our away performances to be. We want to come to grounds which are tough. Like we went to Stamford Bridge the other week, and we're going to dig in. We're not going to be a soft touch anymore. We're going to just show you that the Liverpool that you might remember from 1920, a lot of those players have moved on, but the grit of that and the grist of that is still amongst us. And I think the more we move through that second half, we were just kind of like letting them punch themselves out and just luring them in, and then boom, fucking Darwin's there.
Every sub, I think, makes us stronger, Keo. Like, it makes us more likely, but again, it's this idea of getting through the periods. Put the Gomez one to one side, he does Elliott and Jota, and both of them play absolutely brilliantly. And then later on, Darwin comes on. The Quansah thing happens where I think he's been a bit clever and a bit cute around what Harvey Barnes is going to do. But first and foremost, I thought Elliott and Jota made a massive difference. And straight away, it was like he'd sent the signal and making the sub. Right, we're going to be a bit more of a threat now. We've seen out that period. Now we're more of a threat. Now we go up through the gears. And it was such a good managed performance from the manager, but also from those players themselves left playing with 10.
The subs won us the game. To be honest, the subs won us the game, and I was a little bit critical when he took Diaz off because he was such an outlet. He looked so sharp. He looked so on it. My idea was to probably take Gakpo and McAllister off, and probably take McAllister off and have Gakpo doing the 9 and the 10 because he's good enough to do it, and leave the two wingers out there because they were a threat. So I was a little bit critical at the time, but the subs won us the game, and that's what he does. You know what I mean? I would sound sitting in the boozer or in the match going, "What's he doing, taking him off?" But when you go away from home, when you play a decent side, by the way, a good side, and you go a goal down, you get down to 10 men, and he's made changes that have won us the match at the end of the day.
They do win us the game, and I think that we'll come on to talk about the brilliance of Nunez in a second and how incredible it is. And I do want to have 10 minutes on the great man himself. But Jota and Elliott do just make a massive difference in the. I think both of them in different ways. Elliott effectively ends up our deepest line midfielder after the next raft of changes that he does. And I think it shows such faith in him. I think he's looked sharp from the bench, and I just think Jota he's so able to impact football matches in a bit of a mad way at times. He doesn't feel part of anything else. He's his own show. But I think it wrecks Newcastle's head a bit, really. I don't think they quite know what to do with either of them.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think on the Jota point, he always strikes me as one of those footballers where he's analysing the game from the sidelines. He was on the bench and he's looking at it and thinking, when I get on here, how am I going to impact on this football match? I don't think every footballer's like that. I think sometimes you'll see them and they're talking to the fella next to them, or they're just having a little bit of a chat or whatever, but he just looks like someone who's always thinking about what he can do to influence it when he gets his opportunity. And I think you see a little bit of that. He's very cute and clever. We know that. His movement's great. He puts Salah in on about maybe 65, 67, something like that, and Salah maybe could have pulled the trigger slightly sooner. But it's a great bit of play by Jota. And obviously he's involved in the first Nunez goal as well. I think you've got to give Elliott loads of credit, because I think when he comes on against Bournemouth, he's really poor, I think. And he really struggles in that match. It's the complete opposite. And by the way, he did a really good cameo against Chelsea. But he comes on and he does everything. And again, he's involved in Liverpool winning the game because he blocks the ball from Bruno that allows Liverpool to go up and score and get the winner. So really good performances. And at one point, I think Liverpool's midfield I think it's Salah, Szoboszlai, you've got Jota and Elliott. I mean, it's so far removed from what you'd want to see in any football match, but somehow they make it work. And again, huge credit to the manager, because I agree with Keo. There was a lot of people shouting for maybe Diaz to stay on, and you can understand why to a degree, because he carries it well. He gives Liverpool a bit of breathing space. He can beat a man. All the things that you might associate you want when you go down to 10 men, but he's brave in what he does, and it works for him.
Other two I want to talk about before talking about the big man, Keo. I think that both centre-halves, Matip and Gomez, they've had criticism. I mean, I've been very critical of Matip across the last few weeks, so first and foremost, let's slaughter me, by all means. But I think both of them play really, really well. As soon as that game goes down to 10, I think Gomez comes on and he's excellent. And I think he offers a pathway. He looks after it well. I enjoyed it a couple of times when he just kicked it out. We were in a little bit of bother. He was potentially in a little bit of bother. Just kicks it out for a throw and goes, that's all right.
There's a few blocks as well. He makes a couple of blocks, and again, I've been slightly critical of Matip and Gomez at times over recent months, maybe last season. When Konate was injured, I was a little bit concerned about which way we go. Do we play Matip, and do we risk the fact that he hasn't played for a little while? He's made a glass. All these things that go in, he does really well. And Gomez, I'll describe it. He makes a couple of blocks. He makes a couple of stops that I was watching it and going, I've given him some stick over recent times, but we're 1-0 down or we're 1-1 or 2-1 up, and he's performing. So fair play to Gomez yesterday. I thought
I think he's smart through it, Robbie, all the way through. I think he looks after it well. As I say, he looks after the moment well. He doesn't overcommit. He doesn't get himself. There's a couple of times where I think he's about to do the thing that you've seen him do in the past, and then he just sorts it out really, really quickly. I also thought he looked the quickest. I've seen him for a while, a couple of times there. You know, there's been times watching him recently. When I say recently, I mean back in the last season, made a bit like he's not quite got the same pace on the cover, but then he did have. I think it's a really buoyant performance from Gomez, and I think it's one that he can build on. Not least because I presume that Van Dijk's not going to be available for the next game.
Yeah, I thought he did really well generally. There was a moment where Mata puts a square across the box to him, and I think if that had happened 12 months ago, when I see the ball coming into Gomez at that point, I'm like, oh fucking hell. Yeah. But there was, as the ball's rolling in, I was thinking anything could happen here. You know, it wasn't like they were pressing really high, but they were kind of like really getting into Matip. And because the way we conceded the first goal, I was like, please don't, Joe, please don't do anything daft. But he didn't. He was just really composed. He puts his foot through it, and you know, kind of like, you know, averts the pressure. He did look quick. He looked good on the ball. His passing moving forward, I thought, was very good. And I actually think it kind of like also gave it calmed Trent down a bit as well. I think having him next to him throughout the game just really calmed Trent down.
I think in general, the other thing I think that calms Trent down, Robbie, I think his head goes absolutely massively. And by the way, it is a foul on him. And I've seen in every game I watched over the course of the weekend, which was a fair few, I've seen much more dissent from other footballers not punished with yellow cards.
I don't know what he's meant to do. Unless he's got like fucking the ability to be telekinetic and just like move the ball onto the pitch with his eyes. I don't know what he's meant to do.
I think he thinks it's a foul, by the way. I think he thinks he's getting a free kick when he throws the ball back on. Let's get that back on there so I can take a free kick.
If he throws it in the stands or he throws it away, you'd say, all right, you can justify it, but he turns around sliding and almost tries to make the play go quick and throw the ball back on the pitch. Never mind Newcastle wasting time like they normally do. Let's get this game going. He throws the ball back onto the field of play and he gets booked for it. And then the decision a couple of minutes later with Anthony Gordon, but to be fair, is a foul. But the fact that he's just been booked and he shouldn't have been booked influences that decision, and then the mistake comes. To be fair, it's a mistake. It is a mistake. He puts his foot over the ball, but I honestly believe if he doesn't get booked when he shouldn't do, and then the Anthony Gordon challenge threatened to send him off, his head's in a different place.
Yeah, massively,
100%, and like that, it's a massive fact. Don't get me wrong, it's a mistake, but his head's all over the place. He's looking and getting sent off any time.
The mad thing about his head, Ian, for me, is his head's all over the place. Then Virgil gets sent off. And then it's a performance of absolute calm, Liverpool captaincy. It's like it's almost like it lets him reset when Virgil gets sent off, and that's a mad thing to say, but it's almost like he gets the armband and he's like, right, I've got to just look after this now for the rest of the match. My job is to look after this for the rest of the game, and it's such a strange thing that you get to see, but it does impact him. And I think the other thing that's in his head, and I genuinely do think this, is he thinks, I'm getting slaughtered on telly. I'm getting slaughtered on telly here. It's happening again, the thing where I get slaughtered on telly. And I think that's part of the reason why he gives RM the big one on 94, because he knows, all right, we've changed the story now. That's not happening to me. We've all come together and got through this. But it is the managing of the emotions in the first place. He does lose his mind. It's great from a Liverpool point of view, he gets it back.
He does well to recover, because I think, and it must have gone through the manager's head as well, I might have to take him off here. So early on, even though it is ridiculously early, you could smell it that it was going to go one way. You think, all right, he's been booked, and it's never a booking, because it's an absolute, it's stonewall foul. I mean, Gordon knows what he's doing. He's pushed him, and then, as we've said, Trent's barely threw it back onto the pitch. It must have gone 5-10 yards tops. You can square some of this if there's consistency through the game, but even just through that game, never mind other games that are going on across the weekend, there's lads kicking it away, there's lads showing dissent, there's lads suggesting players should be getting yellow cards, and referees are just deciding when they want to offer a yellow card up. It's not consistent throughout any given football match, let alone across a weekend. So you can understand why players are going to get frustrated, and this already feels like, even this early on in the season, it's unravelling a little bit for the officials. It really is unravelling. I think Trent, to regroup and then deliver what he does over the course of the game, and maybe getting the captaincy helps him, because he thinks, well, no, I've got to show leadership here, I've got to stay on the pitch, I've got to do all the things expected of me. And he does find himself because there's no doubt for 20-25 minutes, he's, it's rabbit in the headlight stuff and he is all over the place. And he's taken a lot of stick at times from various people, not least of all the guy who was on co-coms yesterday. So maybe that does play into him when he thinks it's another one of them, I'm going to get slaughtered. But him, like the rest of them, they dig in. And let's be fair, Liverpool aren't great, 11v11. They're a mess for large part of that first 25, half an hour. But when it does become 10, it's then all about, well, what can Newcastle do? Because they love to kind of impose their physicality on teams and just cyborg their heads off for 90 minutes. But they can't do that because all of a sudden, if they want to go and get the second, they've got to do something different and they've got to be a bit more cute, a bit more clever. And don't get me wrong, they've got good footballers and you see it in the first game of the season against Villa. But Liverpool are so compact and it is difficult for them. And all of a sudden, those players who are physical kind of monsters, if you like, and they are very aggressive, they've got to offer something different in terms of a skill set, and they don't quite have it, and then Liverpool go from there.
Or the manager can make changes.
Or the manager can make changes.
He could make changes there. Manager could go 4-4-2, could do this, could do that, could do the other. But he's a bit like a rabbit in the headlights himself at that point. I think there's something that happens to Newcastle, Ian, where I just think there's a bit of the onus is on us here now. We didn't perform at the Etihad, and now the onus is on us here. And I think our manager plays their mentality really cleverly. All right, we just keep it tight for the 15 after half time. Now we put a bit of pressure on, we put a bit of doubt in their minds, and all that moves forward. And I think it's, I think the manager feels the game out brilliantly. Our manager feels the game out brilliantly. Their manager just does more of the same. More of the same, please, boys, but with, I think Barnes and Gordon are about as good as each other, but apart from that, with less good players. Can we have more of the same? What's my next sub? Oh, all right, I'll do Isak for Wilson. Will Isak be better one? That's why I start him. What's my other sub? I'll do Longstaff for Tonali. But I bought Tonali to replace Longstaff. It's just more of the same. And I don't think it works for them. I think they end up, Ian, I think they'll end up absolutely ruin this. And I think it's the sort of thing that gets in people's heads. And there's something else about this as well. They're in competition with Liverpool. They're now 4 points behind us and they've got to come to Anfield. And it's only 3 games. But, this I think they'll be really today. The supporters, the players, the manager, and for him, possibly even whatever the ownership structure is. I think they'll be thinking to themselves, wasn't right, that wasn't good enough.
No, it wasn't a mature performance. And I think what happens is maybe the manager falls foul of this. The players almost certainly do. They're riding the crowd a little bit, where the crowd are almost baying for blood. They're baying for them to go out and get a second because they think Liverpool are there for the taking. And you can understand why to an extent, because we are shaky. We are a bit like a boxer who's been punched on the nose. And that's why whenever I refer back to the Alisson point, if it does go 2, you can imagine we fall to bits.
Oh, it could go 5.
And
if it goes 2, it could go 5.
3, 4, maybe 5, because we've probably all been in that ground where it can become a bit of a cauldron and it can get on top of you and it can get the better of you. But I still think they're trying to ride that a little bit, and the manager could have done a multitude of different things. I don't think his subs particularly help what Newcastle are trying to do, although I have seen him make them in other games and it come off. So to be fair to him, he might say, well, I've brought Wilson on against Villa, he comes on and scores immediately. I've brought Barnes on, he gets assists. So you can see what he's trying to do, but it didn't feel very mature in terms of the execution of it. I think they could have just took a breath for a little bit, because at the end of the day, they were 1 up and they could have just played it. Liverpool have got to, if they want to get anything out of the game, they're going to have to show some ambition at some point, and then maybe we pick them off. But they go searching, and that plays into Liverpool's hands.
I also thought in that respect, I think when we've played them in the past, that the danger man for them has been Saint-Maximin. And I was watching that game yesterday, and I know there's a lot of kind of there's a lot of clerical upheaval, I suppose, at Newcastle at the minute, because you've got a relatively new sporting department, you've got new owners, there's a lot going on. And I know Gordon played I thought Gordon did brilliantly yesterday for them, in fairness, but they missed Saint-Maximin, and the choice to sell him to that Saudi Arabian team was just, I was just sitting there thinking, why have they let him go?
Because he
was a bit of a figurehead as well. He was a player that a crowd got behind very quickly, and he excited them. And I actually think if he was on the pitch yesterday, they probably would have had a bit more success against us, because
they had no X factor. I think they had no X factor.
Except for the Alisson save and the goal later on, I can't remember any points where they got in behind us.
So on to our X factor, Darwin Núñez, Keo. The way in which it goes, I just think there's something incredible about it, and I really hope it does kickstart him feeling like he's a massive force at Liverpool. He nearly gets in once. If anything, his touch is too good, and that he gets it absolutely bang under control when he needed to sort of move on to it. And then when he's in for the equaliser, it's so beautifully, so sweetly struck. He goes on and gets to the next one. It feels like it's written. You know what I mean? It's that level of and the nature of him, the hair, the size of him, the force of him. You know, everything about him is just brilliant.
I knew when he scored the first, I said to me, mate, if we're going to win this, he's going to get the winner. And I knew it. He's that type of player. Like I was saying before off air, he had a little bit of criticism early on, and some people like to jump on his back. He's the type of player, if it's not going well, it's dead easy to pick him apart. He's a little bit unorthodox at times, and there's a few things you can pick at, but I know if he's playing well and Liverpool are playing well, he's dangerous. And we all know that. We've all known that since he came in, that he's got something. I love the fact that he doesn't even need 90 minutes. He's like, give me 10 and I'll win the game. And he comes on the pitch and he knows straight away that he's coming on the pitch to win the match.
I think he knows he's got them on toast. I think it's a really interesting. I think the way they play, he scores there last season, but I think, listen, deep lying, not too sure. In a really weird way, a dead high line that's trying to be clever and catch it offside, not entirely sure. I think he just looks at Dan Burn and goes, I'm having you. Yeah. And I think this is the funny Newcastle thing. I know we were sort of talking about Newcastle just a minute ago, but I think one of the things is, if Newcastle had Nunez, they'd be starting him. If Newcastle had any of our front five, they'd be starting them. If they had Doak, I think they'd start Doak ahead of Almiron. The quality we've got, and then what he shows in that moment, it's like, all right, we had to take Diaz off. We've muted Gakpo. Salah's had to be compromised a bit, but Jota's come on and been great, and now cop for this fella. I think that the embarrassment of riches we've got in attack, and I think he could end up, you know, there's nothing to stop him. If he can strike the ball like that when he gets through on goal, there's nothing to stop him getting 20 a season every season he's here.
No, yesterday is exactly what we want from Nunez, and I was saying before, I think he's got to start the next game. I mean, I love Gakpo, and I love the way we set up there, and we've got a plethora of options, but you can't come on the pitch, score 2 goals like that, and absolutely galvanise the whole fan base and not be in with a shout of starting the next game and doing it again. And I say, I feel like he's not a confidence player, it's the wrong thing to say, but when it's going well for Nunez, it'll go really well. And I think if you play him next week and he gets another goal, you're in with a 25 goal season for him, like.
It's just incredible. It's rock star stuff, it really is. That's what I think he is. He's just an absolute rock star. And I think the rest of them know it as well. I think he's got the love and more of the trust of his teammates than it feels at times he has from people outside the club, Robbie. I think that the lads who are training with him every day think he's great.
I think he's one of those players that he just looks like he wants to do the hard stuff and do it regularly. You know what I mean? A lot of the like the stick he's took is because he's like missed big chances, and it's kind of the chances where, you know, you expect him, he's like stood in front of the goal and you just expect him to poke it in. But if you give him half a yard of space and a chance to get his head up and just do something, he's a magician. He
doesn't need to think about it.
He doesn't. He's like, what is the most maverick thing I can do in this moment? And it's the way it's the fucking zeal that he takes in his celebrations as well. Yeah. Like it was that when he's in front of their crowd, you see that like the second one. I mean, the first one he's down, he's doing that with his hands by his ears. You've got that fella at the front row just giving him loads, and he's just loving it. And then the second one, it's the same again, but he's like, and he's engaged with every single aspect of the game. Yeah. Like, he was engaged with their crowd, they're giving him loads, and he's just giving it a wink and a smile, and he scored 2 absolute whales. I remember I think it was the Goodison game last year, and I think I came in the wrap after the game the day after, and he'd had a really mad performance. Some of the things you'd expected him to do well, he missed. There was an header about, and you'd expect him to because of his prowess, you'd expect him to score. But he also took this shot on the half turn, and I think I don't know if he hit the bar.
He hit the bar,
and it was like Van Basten-esque, you know what I mean? And he is that. Yeah, he's one of those players that I think he'll start next week, but I wouldn't be surprised if the manager actually turned around and said the Darwin plan for the next month or two is we're just going to give him 30 minutes in every game.
That's all he needs.
Because they're going to think about him. Because if he's sat on the bench and the game's tight, if you're an opposition player or an opposition manager, his mere presence is going to loom large. And I do wonder if there is an element of Klopp where she'll think, you know what, we can do this, we can keep it tight, we can get a goal up, get 2 goals up, but we'll make sure we give him his 30. I think yesterday, I wouldn't have been surprised actually if if we were 2 goals up, I think he would have come on earlier. I think
I think it was 11 versus 11. I think he'd got half an hour.
Yeah, defo. I think you'll see him regularly be an half-hour player until he's starting.
But all of that said, as Robbie says, Ian, he's so engaged. And what I mean by that, he's engaged. I think he's engaged with the notion of being the Roy of the Rovers striker, of being... It's what he wants. And I love, as I say, I love the fact that his teammates love that. It's no coincidence to me, it's Mo Salah who plays the absolutely perfectly weighted through ball for him. The sort of through ball that Mo Salah himself would have wanted in 2017-18 when he had, when he had a little bit more of the pace that has just began to leave his game. Salah loves him. You see Salah slip him in all the time. Salah loves him. They know what he's capable of.
100%. And I think the point around the pass with Salah, you find it quite often, don't you, where centre forwards are able to deliver the perfect ball because they know what a good ball needs to look like. I thought the finishes, they reminded me of Suarez finishes, to be honest. They reminded me of Suarez when he was in his absolute peak, and he just doesn't give it a second thought, and he's so accurate in his execution. They were absolutely sublime, and I think once he's delivered the first one, you were almost in no doubt he was going to deliver on the second one as well. But I think...
when he's in on the second one, you think he scored, don't you? There's like the hush. Have you seen the video where the hush descends on the ground and everyone... God, here we go.
There's no doubt in my mind he's finishing the second one. But I think he deserves great credit as well, because he hasn't got anywhere near the minutes he would have wanted, and he's had a good pre-season, and he's probably thinking to himself, I'm doing all the things that are being asked of me here, and I've not really been given a chance. And I thought, leading up to the game, I wanted him to play against Newcastle for the reasons you mentioned. I thought, in terms of their setup, they would be a team where at some point they'll come on to Liverpool, and therefore, when Darwin's at his very best, it is when there's spacing behind, and we know he's a good finisher. He's a better finisher than what one or two people give him credit for. I think where you maybe see him struggle at times, and this is where I thought, play him against Newcastle, but I knew the manager wouldn't. I was convinced he'd go with Gakpo, and that's what transpires. I wasn't convinced he'd get a start against Villa either, because I'm thinking that game could be the total opposite of the Newcastle game, in that they'll come and they'll sit. We saw what Unai Emery did last year. Very compact, not much spacing behind. I know they have that mad game at Newcastle, but traditionally he does like to keep a compact team, and last year they were a nightmare, Villa, to deal with. And I thought that might not suit his skill set, because I think if you're looking at Darwin, you think he's great when he can go on behind, because his pace and his movement is exceptional. But where he needs to work on one or two things is maybe where he has to drop deep a little bit and collect it and bring others into play. But there's no doubt the raw ingredients are there of a top centre forward. They really are. And there'll be times when Liverpool maybe choose not to use him because of the makeup of the opposition. But there will be times when he is potentially our greatest weapon. And if teams are going to come on to you, and there will be moments when if Liverpool are ahead in games, Robbie's point's right, if they are ahead in games and then the team have got to make a decision about when they come on to Liverpool, if you have got Núñez there ready to explode, as I say, he took a lot of stick last season at times. He has an okay season. He gets 15 goals.
Yeah, he gets 15.
He's now got 17. And I think he's got less than 30 starts. So let's not pretend he came in and had an absolute fucking nightmare. It wasn't that. But when you spend that much money on a footballer, maybe you are looking for certain things. And maybe not everything came off. And it's not as... There wasn't quite the finesse there that you see maybe from some other footballers. But we knew we were signing someone who... He hadn't had loads and loads of football behind him. But we'd seen enough for Benfica against us that, my God, if the ball goes in behind... He's a massive, massive threat.
Just on that, the idea, I think part of why I love him, and have loved him, is because he is in loads of ways, he's the archetype. He is a bit like if you were to go and build a robot centre forward, what would you have him be? And you'd end up with something quite close to Darwin Núñez. He then comes in for a massive fee, he plays for Liverpool, he doesn't bang on an unbelievable level, and when he misses, or when it doesn't go right for him, it looks worse. It doesn't make any difference. You know what I mean? If you flick the outside of the post and it goes wide, or you skew it miles wide, it doesn't make any odds in terms of whether or not it's a goal. But there has been a thing about him where, I think he's felt a little bit like, and we've maybe even felt a little bit like, he can be criticised, he can be slaughtered. But for me, he is a footballer you can just build an attack around. You have to accept that there's one or two deficiencies, Ian, and that, maybe he's not going to come and, make it an extra man in midfield in the way in which you'd like. But he can just completely skew football matches by playing on the shoulder all game, because how do you deal with him if he's on the shoulder? No matter where he's on the shoulder, really, because he's not just quick. He's quick over long distances. He's quick over short distances. He's 6'3". You name it, he's got it.
Absolutely, and, despite me saying before that I didn't think he'd start at Villa prior to the Newcastle game, it'll take a brave man not to play him now, because after delivering that, you almost want to harness it and build on it. Now, it's a different opponent, and there's Jota about as well. We just spoke about how clever he was in the game, so it's not necessarily an easy one. But I think sometimes when footballers in those moments, it is important to try and build on it. And I think Darwin, like most footballers, like most strikers, confidence is huge. And how tall, you're saying he's 6'3" today, he probably feels 7'3" today because delivering that, winning the game for Liverpool in that style, in that fashion, in a sense where even the manager says he's managed 1,000 games, he's never had a game like that. He's never had a game like that. And yet, the Howlands come to the party and he's got Liverpool over the line in what could be a really, really important fix. They are going to be rivals, certainly for that top four, you'd imagine, although we've got to see how they settle with Champions League football and all that. And they've got a tough game at the weekend at Brighton, by the way, which puts a little bit of pressure on them. So, yeah, I thought it was just, it was sublime from the minute he came on to the minute, the referee blows the whistle. And you point around Salah, I think it's an important one because they do look like two footballers who are more than happy to feed each other. And I think you see loads of it last season where maybe there's times when he's trying to give it to Salah when it's not really on and it's almost he's trying to be too good a teammate and he knows Salah's the main man. But I think the more and more he gets into his Liverpool career, the more and more you'll see him hit his stride. And yesterday was a great example of that.
I think you could play him in a 2 as well. I think one thing I thought his link-up play with Salah was great, but I thought his link-up play with Jota yesterday was astonishing. I think it's the first time where I think Diogo Jota's a fantastic footballer, but I've always kind of struggled to see where exactly he'd sit like starting regularly in a Liverpool system. And I think yesterday, there was once or twice where Nunez really puts him in. There was the ball swings out to Nunez at one point, and he holds it up there quickly and like proper quick, just plays it back inside. Jota's just a bit late getting on the end of it, but I think them two in particular also, I think there's an understanding between them, and I think we're very much wed now to the idea of us like playing 3 up top. But I would not be surprised if you might see Nunez at various points just like popping up in a 2 with Jota or Salah, because I think having that little large kind of like combination, obviously it's a tale as old as time in football, but I think the industry of both of them and just getting it into Nunez, it's in a similar way to Isak was doing for Newcastle. I think it's a viable choice. I thought he had a good game yesterday.
That's what I.
He reminds me of Peter Crouch, but like just stronger and quicker. He's like, with the ball at his feet, he takes it down. He's got a similar kind of like gait and such. But I think seeing Nunez yesterday, I think now more than ever, you can see the long-term plan. And I think for a player who's coming and cost as much, it's just that's what we're going to need.
And I agree with you as well in the sense of you've got to harness it now. I mean, we know that he's got the ability and we know that he could potentially go to the side for 5 games here and come back in and do that again because that's the type of player he is. But if you want to, we can create a world beater here if we harness what he done yesterday and we give him the start next week and he gets 2 goals again. Get 2 goals every week. That's the player we're talking about here. So I would give him the start next week. And I think yesterday we seen this towards in the last season and in pre-season especially, this thing with Salah, everyone keeps saying he loves playing with Salah, doesn't he? Loves playing with Salah, and you can see it. He really, really, really enjoys bringing him into play. And you mentioned the passes Salah gives him is almost the pass that Salah wants himself every single time. So I mean, we eulogising about him, and rightly so. I'm just so made up with him yesterday. Like.
The idea of building on it for him, but also for us, there's been a bit of insecurity, and we're going to come on and talk about the transfers. And there's obviously a bit of insecurity in that game. We've talked about players losing their heads, all that sort of stuff. We've gone through that. For me, what yesterday reminded me of? It actually reminded me of the Origi derby, where something unlikely happens late in the game. Liverpool don't play that well that day against Everton at Anfield. It's one of our poorer performances in the Klopp era against Everton at Anfield, but we salvage it. And from there, you build something. For me, I think, Keo, if you'd have offered me 10 points from the first 4 games, looking at that fixture list, I'd have been absolutely ecstatic. And they've got a chance of that now. I think there's something to build on with this now, in the way in which it's pure Jurgen Klopp. You build from this point.
It's the answering back. It's the being dealt a bad hand last week and again this week. Down to 10, early doors. Got to answer back. We want to see this team. It's a new team. It's a young team. We want to see them have the same sort of backbone that the old team had, and we want to see that this team not be scared, go a goal down, not bothered, we'll win. And yeah, we've been dealt a bad hand, 2 weeks from bad officiating, and we've come back and won twice. And that's that. If there's anything to build on this season, it's their perfect result. Don't get me wrong, I wish we won 3-0 twice and we didn't have the headache of it all, it's sound, but if we're going to go down to 10 men and we're going to go a goal down and answer back with a young side early on in the season, sound.
That's you know, we've mentioned unlikely players who you're praising to the skies. You're talking about where you said before, Ian, about where that midfield ends up, who it is that's on the pitch. Szoboszlai, we've not even mentioned yet, was an absolute cyborg again yesterday, and just a machine all the way through the match, and has got so much quality as well. You know, we've not really praised Mo Salah other than through the pass, but he shows unreal commitment to do a pretty horrible job there for 30 minutes, where he knows he's getting nothing. He's just got to harry them, and he doesn't show any ego. He just rolls the sleeves up and says, fine. My point is, to me, and the noises that came out through the summer, Alisson post-match in his interview, the manager going down to the end, having murder with their bench, the whole thing to me looks a bit like, and we've got to be careful not to go too far on this guy, I think it's why we lose our heads, but it feels a bit like we're mad as hell and we're not going to take it anymore here, and if you're going to beat Liverpool, you're going to have to beat them 3 times. If you think you're beating Liverpool, you're going to have to beat them over and over again. And that's a spirit that I like to see. And if we can just build on this now, this first 7 points, now I'm not going to say the sky's the limit, because, you know, we know we're going up against a hell of a football team at the Etihad. We know that they're the favourites for this title for a reason. But we can build a season here. I'm absolutely convinced of it.
Yeah, and you've got to be careful not to get carried away, as you said, because, you know, you can fall foul of that sometimes. But, you know, sitting here right now, of course, you are euphoric, and you should be, because games like that don't come along very often. So you have got to enjoy them when they do happen. That said, we all remember last year you beat United 7-0, then you go to Bournemouth, and that really showed up Liverpool's kind of weaknesses, certainly from a mentality point of view. But yesterday they show loads of what you would call elite mentality, because the easiest thing in the world is to lose that game, and they don't.
And feel sorry for yourself.
Feel sorry for yourself, because you can't do it, especially on the back of the Bournemouth one. You could easily feel sorry for yourself where you go, fucking hell, it's happened again here. I can't believe this, it's happened again. And we managed to get over the line the week before, but, you know, it's asking a lot to go again. But they do. And, you know, some of the players you reeled off there, I thought Salah was great with his back to goal. He was great with his back to goal yesterday. And again, it's maybe not something you would associate with absolute peak Mohamed Salah, but it's about him as a footballer just developing, getting better over time, adding new little bits to his game, which he's able to do because he is such a genius of a player. And, you know, we talked about the ball before, it's sublime, but people like Szoboszlai coming into a new team, and it is very much, you know, it is changing, and he's part of that change. But my God, talk about settling in. And he looks like the kind of footballer where I don't even know what he'll be in like 3-4 years' time, because there's loads of different aspects to his game where you think he could do that, but he could also do this. And it got referenced last week, I think, by someone who knew him pretty well, and he spoke about, you know, his ability to be able to, you know, later on in his career almost sit back and be that holding midfielder, because he's got those aspects. And you're thinking, well, I didn't see that coming. But then you see bits yesterday and you're thinking, well, I can kind of see that maybe later on in his career he might be able to do some of that, because he's got the physical attributes. He's so good on the ball, he's so powerful. But then we were talking on the show on Saturday where I'm speaking about, you know, he's got the ability to maybe go even further forward than he is now. If he can suddenly start, and we don't know yet, but if he's adding goals and assists to his game, because he's got the power and the pace, you're thinking, well, he could be a real handful further up the park as well. He's just one of those footballers where you're really keen to see how he develops across the next 12 to 18 months, because he looks like he could be anything he wants to be. And my God, good luck getting a grip of him, by the way, because he's massive, he's fast, you know, he doesn't mind sticking his elbows out and using his body. So, you know, settling into a new league like the Premier League, it's not an easy thing to do. Loads of footballers have struggled and needed time to adjust, but my God, he's at the ground running.
Coming up next, we've got I had a chat with Olivia Graham about her podcast, which is an absolute belter. So here is Olivia Graham, and then after Olivia, we will be talking about transfers, about what Liverpool could do with doing, and going from there to build on the excellent result against Newcastle United. I am indeed joined by Olivia Graham to talk about The Missing Madonna, the podcast series she's produced for the BBC. It's on BBC Sounds at the time that you're listening/watching this. You can check it out straight away. But why don't you let people know what it's about and how it came about?
It is about the most expensive piece of stolen art in British history. So it's a Leonardo da Vinci painting called the Madonna of the Yarn Winder, and it was stolen from a castle in Scotland 20 years ago. Actually, maybe today when this goes out is the 20th anniversary.
Oh, wow.
Look, coming at you live. Not live, obviously. And so it went missing, got stolen, went missing for 4 years, and then a fella went into a pub in Liverpool on Walton Vale and said to the owner of the pub, who was also a private investigator, do you think you can help me? I know someone who knows someone who knows someone who's got this stolen painting, it's being held as collateral. Do you think you can help us return it? And they did. he got involved, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, the fella who returned it was my dad. Is when I come into the story, basically, yeah. Robbie Graham. So, yeah, so sort of telling it on his behalf, really.
I'll tell it on his behalf because a lot goes on after the fact. This podcast series, it's not just about the idea of what actually happened to the painting. It's about the story of what happened to your dad and the journey you then went through around all of this. Involved a court case, involved all sorts of bits and pieces, didn't it? Yeah, there was like loads of twists and turns. So for context, my dad passed away. I know you know this. Like 10 years, I know, yeah. Like we haven't talked about this. Yeah, trying to transcend. So he passed away, I think about 10 years ago. So, like, I think it was about four or 5 years after he got the patent back. So basically, yeah, I mean, God, the main thing is this series is 9 episodes because there is so much that happened. So, you know, I've told this story, that's the short version. Very much so. But the long version involves secret recordings, undercover police officers, God, I don't know, like loads of twists and turns, basically. A big cast of characters is the big thing. Your dad's one of the characters in there, and you've had to look into this, and you found transcripts, you found some of his recordings, you found loads of bits in yours around all of this. When you looked into it, you managed to find all of this because you found out that this was being done as a podcast series. They asked to interview you, and in the end you ended up producing it, which is a wonderful bit of high-handedness that even I've got to respect. That you managed to grab it off them and went, no, I'm going to do this. But that's what happened, isn't it? Because you had all this stuff, but also you were determined the story was told the way in which you wanted it to be told, the way your dad would have wanted it to be told. Oh yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, this is where you actually heavily come in the story. So basically, I got an email off the BBC that was like, we want to make a story about the theft and the recovery of the Madonna of the Armwinder. We believe your dad was involved. We'd love to talk to you. So I texted you, didn't I? I don't know if you remember. I was like, Neil, I was in Leaf on Allerton Road, just burst out crying in public. Classic. Anyway, great advice from Neil, and the was to respond to them, CC in the head of commissions, which was a great shout, by the way. But I sort of had the big blowout, left it there, and then I was having a bevy with Mike Kearney, and it just come up, and he was like, email them now, like you need to email them back. So I'd had a couple of pints at this point, so emailed them on the Saturday, was like, blah, 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 this is who I am. And then I was like, the first question I've got to ask you is what makes you think you're the right people to tell this story? My dad was a working class man from Toxteth/Kirby. And then I'd spent the weekend like telling my sisters I was going to leave my job and I was going to make it and I was going to like downgrade on me, like I was going to live somewhere cheaper rent, blah, blah, blah. And then they got back on the Monday and was like, oh, sound. They were dead sound. yeah. They literally were like, oh yeah, great, should we jump on a call? And I really had me back up for the first bit of it. And I was like, rah. And then you can imagine, can't you? Yeah, and they were all there like, I was getting the text from you. You know what I mean? Yeah, literally. So they're there like, what is, so I was just like, in my head, I was going in to convince them like that this wasn't going to happen for them, do you know what I mean? Anyway, so then I sort of just chilled a bit and then I went, so like, what do you want from me? And they were like, well, we'd like you to be heavily involved. We'd like you to work as a creative producer. We don't know how much you want, but we would love it to be told by someone who knew the story well. Have you ever done any narrating before? And I was like, I've chatted to my mates about like, I don't know, what's your favourite fucking shoe make? So basically oversaw the whole thing, except the audio, which actually is weird because my background in podcast is in audio, but it was just too much to do. You passed that over to them? Yeah, I left that out, which was weird. Are you delighted with it? Yeah, do you know what? I haven't gone through the whole process. I mean, genuinely delighted with it, delighted with the people you met, the people you worked with, the way the whole thing went. Yeah, do you know what? I'm like, the finished product, I love it. It's like, we had a really good sound designer who did the music, and the brief was like, from me, I wanted to sound like the Beatles, but like James Bond, but like if the Coral knew the Beatles, you know what I mean? And he was just like, and like a bit of Only Fools and Horses, but like too much, not silly, do you know what I mean? Anyway, the soundtrack's amazing, and I think I wasn't sure if I'd be able to sit through the interviews of the people who like didn't do right by me dad, but I think we still got good content. It's like, I'm just like, yeah, I think it's good, which is like makes it easier. Do you know what I mean? It makes this part now, I'm like, do you know what? Of all the stuff that's like stressing me out a bit, it's not whether it's good or not. I think it is good. That's the most important thing. I mean, people listen to it now, as I say on BBC Sounds, it's called The Missing Madonna. The idea of this part now is you having to go to speak to people like me, who you might not already know, which, you know, it gives me a head start. But the whole process of this, you know, at some point I want to get you in to talk about it at length for 40 minutes or so, go through every sort of facet of it, because I am intrigued by it, and we did have the contact sort of before and in the early stages of during. The whole process of it,
the whole thing, by the way, like, I've not looked at a camera once, but like Neil has been like a saviour. In all the interviews, like when I did the Echo interview, the lovely lad who interviewed me knew you, so I was like, and Neil said this, and then he said, and all this, and I was like, this has become about Neil now.
Well, let's not let this bit be about Neil. There's more than enough on the Anfield Wrap that's about Neil. You don't need to worry.
Okay.
But as part of going through the process of it, as I say, you discovered more about your dad. You discovered more about that world then. You know, to me, it feels as though it's like, it seems as though it's been for you just a hugely positive experience, just sort of getting to grips with all of that and then being able to tell it the way you want it to be told. For me, that's been the biggest deal all the way through. It's your thing, this.
Yeah, and it really feels like, it does really feel like, you know, like you worried. I worried the whole way that it wasn't going to be like funny and it wasn't going to be like scouse enough. And in my head, I wanted to sound like we were all in a boozer. But and I text Mike once and he was like, Livy, like, people aren't going to understand. If we all just sat around talking about it like some fella called Stephen Basingstoke on a walk with his dog, he needs to understand it as well, do you know what I mean? But yeah, I think like everyone was always like, oh, you need to tell that story about your dad, and like my family really wanted to see it happen, but like it was so huge that like, so the weirdest thing about doing the press is they're asking me about how it was to do it, and I'm like, I feel like I was like in a dream the whole time. Like I was just doing all, like speaking to the prosecutor who I remember in court trying to send me dad to prison for the rest of his life. I remembered his voice like perfectly, and I'm just there on the like, he was in the Edinburgh studio, I was in the Glasgow studio, just being like, oh yeah, right, do you know what I mean? Just like trying to get through all this stuff. But I think it's like I had to like remember how and who my dad was in it, which like I think sometimes when you lose someone, you get a barrier up, don't you? But it's just absolutely that barrier's gone. I'm absolutely like, do you know what I mean? Yeah. So yeah.
The Missing Madonna on BBC Sounds, produced by and very much from the mind of Olivia Graham. It's the absolute business. Very proud of her. We're back in the room. Just want one more final word on Newcastle, just to keep it upbeat. It is, you know, it's a great win, Robbie, and it is one of those, as Ian said just before the break. You know, it's you just don't get many. And the manager says he's not managed many games like that himself. You know. But it is that idea of everyone in front of the fans at the end, everyone over. It's mad to think it's still only August. That's the sort of stuff you normally do in April and May. But I want them to be carried away and emotional about it. You know, I thought that one of the things that Arsenal did brilliantly last season, in that I never thought Arsenal were as good as the press. But the one thing they were doing was they were enjoying winning. They were enjoying being a gang. They were enjoying winning. They were enjoying being around their own supporters. You build with that, you know. You build with the idea of enjoying the winning of the football matches,
and it also gives you the agency to create your own story. This is a new Liverpool team. There's a lot of young lads in there that haven't like hit the heights of some of the old Liverpool team, and you know, I think seeing how dogged they were yesterday, we saw about Szoboszlai then. I was him and McAllister, the running they did to keep up with that midfield yesterday, I just thought was astonishing. Yeah, at times, you know, Guimaraes looked like he was getting the better of it, but he was so dogged. And it's just giving these players the opportunity to bed in and say, this is my story, you know. I think we talked about Elliot before, and I think one thing that I love about him more than anything is how much he wants to play for Liverpool. I think Harvey Elliott is driven by one thing, and that is just to be a success at Liverpool Football Club. I don't think he cares where he plays. I don't think he cares how many goals he scores. I just think he wants to contribute and be part of the story of this club moving forward. And I think if you've got players like that want to engage, like we said before, with Núñez, with the crowd, with the club, with the fabric of it and the city itself, I think you've got all the elements for success in the long term. And I know the last 3 months have been quite difficult in terms of like getting our head around what the future is with Liverpool. But Liverpool it's a romantic club, and that romance is built on stories. And what we're doing now, we're giving these young lads, the opportunity to forge their own. And we've just got to stick with it. And I'll include myself in this. We'll all have a moan. We'll all sit there, we'll all go, why aren't we buying this? Why aren't we doing that? And I don't think there's any doubt in anyone's mind. There needs to be more ambition in certain aspects of the club moving forward. I don't think that. I think that's a unanimous kind of agreement. But in the players themselves, there is a fucking drive to succeed. And if you've got players like Elliot, like Szoboszlai, like other
Nunez.
Lads just want to get the bit. Exactly. Trent yesterday, that's a story in itself. Is that the first time he's threw the armbands on?
Yeah, in a league game.
Do you know what I mean? He threw the armbands on, and we've cracked on and we've won the game. I just think it's about the romance of this club has propelled it forward, and I think it's something we've all got to buy into, players, supporters and staff, and if we can do, and fucking owners as well, and if we can all do that, then there's no reason we can't crack on.
This is why, I think that to anyone who wants to move clubs, Keo, I think they should be a hugely attractive proposition. Come and be part of this. It's more fun than what's happening at St James's. It's more fun than what's happening at Old Trafford. It's more fun than things that are happening in some of these other places. And I think that, I know for a fact the club do put material of showing trophy parades when they're courting new signings. And I think that, if there's one thing to take from this, to talk about the transfer point, I think we're the most attractive proposition in world football. Come and work for this manager, play with these players, play with this group, win something here, the old thing of win something here, they build a statue for you, because they will. And we're already talking about Szoboszlai like he's our favourite player. We've just banged on about Nunez. There we are. We just banged on about Nunez. We're all in on Trent Alexander-Arnold as vice-captain. I loved seeing Virgil welcoming them all back into the dressing room after he got sent off there and seeing them all. And that's, I'm sure that's happening in a lot of football clubs, don't get me wrong, but we're Liverpool, and let's go out there this week, be Liverpool, and say to a few people, if you've got to agitate at your club to come and be part of this, start agitating, because this train's leaving the station and you want to be on it.
At the end of the day, we've got the best manager on the planet. And if you're a footballer now, if I was a 21-year-old footballer and everyone's saying how brilliant I am, who would you like to play for? It'd be Jurgen Klopp every single time. And we've been a little bit frustrated in recent weeks with losing out on Caicedo and Lavia. But in hindsight, and it's easy to say now, but you don't want players who don't want to play for Liverpool. And you were saying before about Harvey Elliott. I agree. I don't think he's bothered about how many goals he scores or how many appearances he gets, or he just wants to be a success at Liverpool. He just wants to contribute, and that's what we want from players. So we have missed out on a couple of signings here and there. But watching that yesterday, every single player on that pitch wants to play for Liverpool, wants to win that game, and that's what you want more than anything in the world. And we signed Caicedo or Lavia, and they've come for their agent's fee and a load of dough, and they're not that hungry. And it takes them 12, 18 months to get hungry and understand how game we are for winning this league and how game we are for beating everyone. It takes a little bit of time. We don't want that. We want someone to come in. Bit like Nunez yesterday, he comes on the pitch and goes, give me 10 minutes, don't even need 90. Give me 10 minutes and I'll score 2 goals, I'll win this game because I want to win this match. So I agree, we've been a little bit, I want more ambition, and we all want that. It is a unanimous decision, but I don't feel like I felt 2 weeks ago in the sense of we can't sign him, we can't sign that. Watching that yesterday, I beat anyone. Even if you go a goal up, we'll beat you. You know what I mean? And that's the mentality that Liverpool have had in recent years, and that's what made it great. I remember a couple of years ago when a goal down, I almost laughed when we went a goal down in 18, 19 or 19, 20. I laughed. You got the cheek of scoring against us. You know what I mean? So I want that back. I want that ambition back to be every player on the pitch wanting to win the league and wanting to win every single game, and we got that yesterday.
They should be hitting phones, I think, this week, Ian. Hitting phones of players, hitting phones of agents, hitting phones of clubs. For me, they don't need to get... And I think this is the thing. I don't think, you look at what's there. I'll say it again. It's the best attack in world football. They've got the best 5 attacking options in world football, and Ben Doak is one of the most exciting talents in world football, backing that up. And that isn't even counting Szoboszlai or Elliott or Jones or McAllister as attackers. They've got that. For me, they've got great players. They've got great players right the way across the board. What they want zealots. They want good players who believe in coming and being part of this. And there's loads of good players out there. And my frustration has been, I just don't think Liverpool have bought enough good players. I think the transfer business Liverpool do tends to be really, really good business, and I still believe in, for instance, Nunez and stuff like that. I think it'll prove to be good business. They just need to do a little bit more of it. Buy some good players, lads. Buy some good players who will die for the club. And if you buy good players who will die for the club, they'll fit right in.
Yeah, I think where some of the frustration lies at times is that, they're not a million miles away. And even last season, they end up having a really poor campaign, and it makes it then hard to articulate a case where if they just bought another couple, they could have challenged. But sometimes players, even 1 or 2 can be that important where they can kick it on and it just gives everyone a lift. You know, you see even when Luis Diaz comes in, Liverpool don't look at the time like a team that's going to go on the run they go on. But him coming in, playing the way he played when he first arrived, it gave everyone a huge lift. And that's where I get a bit frustrated because I don't think Liverpool are that far away. There's loads of good players there. You've just alluded to lots and lots of names. They just need a little bit of help. They need a little bit of help. And I think the manager needs a little bit of help. And that means... And some people will say, well, maybe he's part of the problem. We don't know what goes on behind the scenes and people are having different conversations, but I will always back the fucking manager over any ownership group every single day of the week. And he's proven to me time and time again that he is the man to lead this club. And I think he will have looked at certain players last season and he'll know they need help. So I'm not quite sure it's about he wants the absolute perfect fit. Now, it may come out that that is the case, but I don't think it's that because I think he knows that with a couple of additions, Liverpool can
Everyone's
go quite far.
compromised on Endo, if you see what I mean. No, he's got no resale value. He's over 30. Well, he's just turned 30. No one thinks for a second he's the best number 6 on the planet. You know, you can see at Endo when you can go, everyone's compromised there. And I think, but the other thing about him is, by the way, imagine him waking up this morning thinking, I can't believe my life. This is absolutely incredible. He will be bouncing into every training session, and that's the point. It's not, you know, for me, and that's what I want. I want everyone just to go, you know what? It's here and now, boys. Yeah. And we get another couple of footballers, I'd like 3, but at least another couple of footballers who'll be able to bounce into training and think, this is it. These will be the defining years of my career.
Yeah.
Let's go and buy a couple of them.
Endo's probably thinking I wouldn't mind 11v11 game of football. Because this is going to get uncomfortable if it's 11v10 every week. But see, on him, so he strikes me as, people have compromised, which shows the manager is willing to compromise because he seemed genuinely happy when Endo came through the door. Now, it's a bit of a shift in strategy, and I think you've got to get your head around that. You know, to go for Caicedo and end up there is quite the leap. But, you know, where we are with that. I'm fine with Endo, but it needs to be as well as something else.
Yeah.
Because he can't be the only midfield addition. Because that, for him, that almost feels unfair. Yeah. 2 of the best number 6s I've seen in the last 5 years, one of them plays for Manchester City and he still does, and the other one played for Liverpool and he's just left. They were the 2 best. And they did not settle from day one. They needed time. And they were unbelievable holding midfielders that just needed a little bit of a period where they have to find the feet. I've got no doubt at 30 and having played for the mid-table Bundesliga team for the last 4 years, he will also need time, but he should not be the only answer to this problem. He should be supplementing something else that comes in.
Trindade wasn't in the Fluminense squad.
Yeah, I know you put that in your agenda and it's an interesting one. I'm not quite sure what that means at this stage, but Liverpool have to be doing business over the next 6 or 7 days. They simply have to, because they have to give some of those footballers a little helping hand. And I think those footballers also feel the same, and we've heard little bits of that throughout the course of the summer. They just want better players to come in and just almost be that little kind of lift that you sometimes need. And I think other teams will look at that and go, fucking hell, Liverpool have had another 2 or 3 year. We know at times the managers enjoyed working with a smaller squad. Some elite managers do say that, but I don't think he wants the smaller squad. And Liverpool at the minute look like they've got the smallest squad in the league.
Just on the idea of the squad, Robbie, for me, one of the things here is we haven't played the European game yet. We haven't even got the draw. But why I've wanted them to do, to really sort of cut loose on the business this summer, I've been arguing it all the way through, is it's a good year to, for instance, take a couple of risks off the basis of the fact that you're going to have 6 Europa League group games where we'd expect Liverpool, if they were to go first 11 in all 6, they'd win. You know, and that's not arrogance. They'd at least win 5 and draw 1, you'd think. It's not arrogance. That's just literally the way European football's broken. It's money. You know, it's the reality. It's the reality of money more than it's anything else. But what that means is, well, maybe you can win 3 and draw 3, and you can have a look at a few other players and give them a bit of time to settle. It's not as stressful as Champions League football where you've got to pick, and this is what Newcastle are in for, and United are in for, and Arsenal are in for, that they haven't got the experience of. You've got to put your first 11 on the pitch in at least 4 group games. Otherwise, you're going to get embarrassed. We can have a bit of leeway, and that's why whichever end of the spectrum they're looking at, if they want to do a couple that are a little bit unlikely, this is the season to do it. This is the season to do it, because then you can also be resting your first 11 to then rock up, play the league games, get momentum up. You've got 6 or 7 players who are only playing weekends, 6 or 7 players who are only playing midweeks, and everyone's on a bit of a journey together, and there's a little bit of crossover between the two, at least until Christmas.
Yeah, I think the Europa League, like, straight away we know that we're going to see some of our younger players. Like you'd expect, like people like Zoke, things like players like that to play, and that in itself is a risk. You're not going to play Ben Zoke against like Manchester United at home, for instance, because I mean, fucking hell, the way he plays sometimes, why not? But you've got to kind of like you've got to edge your bets where they come, and one thing that really has just frustrated me with the transfer stuff in particular is that no one wants Liverpool to go out and buy Virgil van Dijk. No one wants us to go out and buy Van Dijk's replacement right now. You know, all we're after, in essence, like you said before, is using the word zealots, grafters, and players that you can just rely on and who can do a job. It's not like we're not asking them to go out and sign Mbappe or, I mean, I know they put a bid in for Caicedo, but all we're after is just like classic grafting, Ronnie Whelan-esque Liverpool type players who can supplement everybody else and get the games when they need them. The Europa League is an opportunity prior to Christmas in particular. That's why I'm not comfortable with the idea of them doing some of the business in January, because as you said before, we can afford to lose or to draw some of those Europa League games. So get those players in now, give them the bedding in period like Ian suggested before. Get them up to speed by Christmas. Use the League Cup. Use the Europa League. Get us to where we need to be, because we're not far off. We're not. And City, I know, you know, it's going to take a lot to beat City, but they haven't been tearing up any trees.
One of the things for me, just to take from yesterday to wind it in, Robbie, is I'm not scared of Newcastle. I think there's maybe two of theirs that are getting our first 11. Genuinely, in our first 11. But then you look at the 11 they put out yesterday, and arguably, you could make a case for any of that 11 being a squad player for Liverpool and being able to be really successful. Arsenal dropped points against Fulham at the weekend. They've you know, in the previous games, I think they get away with it against Forest, and I don't think they're as good when they go down to 10 against Palace as we were against Bournemouth. You know, I don't look at Arsenal and go, again, you know, all of theirs are getting our first 11, or even half of them are getting our first 11, but they've got a plan as to how they're going to get through the season. They've got the numbers. They've been clever in midfield, and they've laid the money out in midfield. You know, for me, I'm not scared of anyone. And City aside, you know, we just know we're going to be there year in, year out. You know what they're going to do. You can plan for that though. Everyone else, United are crap. Newcastle, you know, they just couldn't score against us when we were down to 10. There, Arsenal, not bothered by. Brighton just got beat 3-1 at home by West Ham. Who else do you fancy? Go on, you go through your list. Tottenham, they look like they're having a laugh, but they're still Tottenham. Chelsea, crap against West Ham. Get done 3-1. Yeah, they'll come together and they'll find some way to come to the party, but they're not perfect. I'm scared of no one.
Yeah, but no should we be, because even at our worst last season, we were still capable enough to put people to the sword, even Arsenal away. Like, I think
we shoot ourselves in the foot, but apart from that, we have played them first half.
Absolutely, and we have hard lines with the VAR stuff with the first goal and so on and so forth. There was so many mitigating factors with some of the bad results, though. I mean, our form against like the bottom half of the table, you know, that's another like issue. But if you put us head to head against the better teams in the league last season, in the majority of the games we held our own. I think the only time we were played off the park was Brighton and Man City away. Yeah. I think those are the only two times in particular I can really go, the better teams in the league have buried us. Every other time, we've held our own. And I think yesterday, it wasn't the best Liverpool, but it fucking ground out what it needed to do. And if not the best version of Liverpool can grind out 3 points against a team as dogged as Newcastle and at a ground as difficult as St James's Park, there is absolutely no reason that if Liverpool is allowed to be the best version of itself and get players in who can supplement the better players we've got, we could go really fucking far this season. And it really winds me up when our expectations are being checked, because we can all see it. We're talking about players like Szoboszlai, McAllister, even young lads like Doak, and we can see the potential and we can see how front-footed and direct they are.
Two weeks ago, the manager says in his press conference, signing's money's no excuse. We've got more than enough. We've got not more than enough players, but more than enough talent and ability. And I'm with him 100%. I'm right behind this squad. I'm right behind this team. They just need a little bit of help.
That's it. So something's got to happen now, not like tomorrow, today. whether fucking Schmackers are as Villa and Ibiza, you know, having a great time or not.
You think Keo's going in a bit?
The space.
I'm not far off by centre half, to be honest.
You can see how it unravels a little bit, like yesterday, where all of a sudden now they haven't got the 2 first choice centre halves. And don't get me wrong, Gomez and Matip come in and do a good job. You'd be a little bit more concerned if that was over a longer period, because we don't quite know where Gomez and Matip are. And this is about just giving yourself the best possible chance to go and have a really, really good season. And, you know, part of that is down to what you do over the next 6 or 7 days. And if they get some of that right, and I'd like 3, I don't think they'll do 3 now, but I think they should have been doing 3. I think they should have been bringing 2 defenders in and another midfielder. But even if it's 2, you'd have to say that would make a massive difference. But they've got to make those moves.
You think we will?
I think they'll do 2 minimum. I'd like them to do a 3rd. I'd love, what I actually want to play out is a slightly weird Dudek Kirkland situation. I actually think I'd like us to Dudek Kirkland ourselves into something positive here. I'd quite like there to be one where they just push forward and they actually find it a little bit easier. And I think full stop. I think the other thing in the context of all of this is United still need to do the thing I always do. United still need to do business. Chelsea are saying they still want to do business. City, it looks like they're still trying to close in on Matthias Nunes. You can go through the league and go loads of people want to do business, but that's one of the reasons why I think we could get to do the business we want to do, because there's moving parts everywhere still. It's not like everything's locked down, and that's why I think we could get quite far along with 2 or 3 and in the end go off. And genuinely, I want the mentality at Liverpool to be for this season, because of the Europa League, because of the opportunity, because you want to get back in the Champions League. For me, you can just take a couple more risks, and that seems weird because you go, well, you haven't got the Champions League money. It's not about the money. For me, it's about being able to get a certain profile of player who you might be only 90% on.
You made a point on a different show last week about our idea of a player's change. We don't sign Wijnaldum's no more, we don't sign Roberts no more. We're almost a little bit, I don't know what the right way to describe it, we're a little bit spoilt in the sense we think we're a little bit better than in the market than what we should be. Sometimes we're aiming for this perfect player or this idea of a player. Before the ball was kicked this season, we all thought we needed 3 or 4 top-class signings to even play well. And after yesterday, now we're talking about just need a bit of help. It's not as bad as it was, and the players that we've got are, I agree.
It's because I believe in Szoboszlai, I believe in McAllister, and I believe in these 5 attackers. That's my big thing here. I'm looking at these lads and I believe in them. I think Virgil, yesterday aside with the red cards, you know, which I don't think was a red card, but that's a separate argument. I think Virgil's looked like he's starting the season pretty well. It's nice to see Gomez come in and look good. Trent looks good. Robertson's done all right. You know, you can go through and go.
Unbelievable.
Keepers, if you've got the best attackers, you've got the best goalkeeper. You've got to fix this shit in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah, but to fix it, you've got to have the footballers.
Needs fixing. It needs a bit of help.
No, but just needs a bit of help, and Ian's point on, you know, I think and my Europa League point is, and Ian's point there about saying, you know, I don't want to get a situation where you feel like, because part of why you want to have the bedrock of being able to do stuff in the Europa League is if your Europa League back four's got Gomez and Matip at the heart of that back four, because Virgil and Canate are playing there, and there's another lad knocking around who's a left-sided centre-half and he can come in and out. Suddenly that's when you're able to say, yeah, we can spread our resources, have a bedrock where other players can develop. But if you get a month where you've got no Virgil and no Canate, and Gomez and Matip are expected to play every game, including the Europa League games, before you know where you are, you're dropping points on both fronts. And that's what they've got to guard against. It doesn't, and I'll say again, for one season, it doesn't need everyone to be a world beater, because not everyone's got to be shit hot every game. Even looking at shit like our midweek game in December, Sheffield United, that's a gift. It's a gift that Sheffield United are your midweek game in December, because yeah, they'll be really aggressive and willing and hard, but you can still make six. You can make six changes. You can play your Europa League team, and maybe you will be taking a bit of a chance. But you can have the cavalry on the bench if you need. Like, that's a gift. And I think all the way through this, I just feel like the Europa Leagues, I think it's really an opportunity. I think it's an opportunity, and you can see it negatively, and you can say it's not Champions League, and it is. I'd rather be in the Champions League, but you've got to deal with what's in front of you, and this is a gift to do things a little bit differently for 1 year. And then maybe if you do 3 this week and you take a gamble, maybe one of them's shit, and it just more accurately, it just doesn't work out. But then what you're able to say is get to next June and say, well, we had to go, it didn't work, we all shake hands and part ways. And I think we've been reluctant even to do that, to buy one who you might need to sell in 12 months. But you've got that opportunity, I think, to do this once. Let's do it.
It's mad for me as well with the centre-backs in particular because Matip's out of contract at the end of the season.
Yeah.
And I just cannot for the life of me see why they don't want to just pull the trigger now.
Surely they've got to.
Yeah, that's the thing, innit? Because
You've got Jolie knocking around. He's still about. He's shown what he can do. And maybe we're in everything next March and we get one final great 3 months out of Joel Matip. Because you know what? He's quite well rested and refreshed.
Yeah.
Because he's not had load burdened on him and he suddenly gets a run of games and you're like, and then knobheads like me start saying, should give him another year. But you know, that's
a situation though where we've got to sign 5 midfielders again, 5 defenders again. Like we know what's happening now, so start looking for a defender now that can replace Matip. He's probably going to go next summer.
Because we found ourselves, I think, for the last 3 or 4 years with players out of contract. There's been every single summer there's been a player coming to the end of the contract, and I just don't feel like we've mitigated replacements for those players in any way, shape or form.
We haven't.
And I just think that is why we've left ourselves where we are.
Yeah, the succession planning's been abysmal at times where they have put themselves under so much pressure, especially in the midfield areas. But you can see it with the defensive areas.
Weirdos.
I know, but in the defensive areas, you know it's coming as well. And you know, Matip now looks like he's the kind of player who, when you are just dropping him in, he's going to be fine. But if all of a sudden you're asking him to go 6-7 games in a run, he's going to break down, and that's where it can just get away from you this season. It can just unravel so quickly. And Liverpool can't afford to do that. Now, we don't know how long the manager's going to be here for, but my fucking God, whilst he is here, let's give him all the help that he needs, because he is one of the best in the business. And if you do give him the tools, you'd back him every time to get you over the line or close to it. And I think, you know, you always come back to, this is a Liverpool team it's not a million miles away, but it's not yet, for me, in the conversation of a title-winning team. It just isn't. But that doesn't mean it can't get there. Big 6 or 7 days coming up.
You build a season, you build a team, and you build Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool, and you have Darwin Nunez being able to spearhead it. Thank you very much indeed to Olivia, to Jordan for producing, to Ian, to Robbie, and to Keo. My God, what a day, what a night, what a week to come. Any podcast you need on any aspect of Liverpool will be on the Anfield Wrap. Do subscribe, go through all of those little bits and pieces. But in the meantime, we all belong to Darwin Nunez.